I stood in that classroom holding 10 flimsy white cards, and every single person around me was already laughing at me before I even touched them. That's the thing nobody tells you about the world after the calamity. It doesn't matter how strong you could become. People only look at what you have right now, and right now I had nothing. My name is Joe Chen, and on the worst day of my life, I was about to pull 10 pieces of blank cardboard that everyone assumed would ruin me forever. I should probably explain how the world got this way, because none of this made sense until I lived through it myself. A few hundred years ago, the sky just tore open. Cracks appeared in space itself, and monsters poured out of them like the world had been holding its breath and finally let go. Humanity almost didn't survive that first wave, but then people discovered something strange. When you killed one of those monsters, it left behind a card, a blank, powerless card, white as bone. And when a person channeled their own energy into that blank card, something incredible happened. The card would transform, and it would grant them power. Sometimes the power to summon a creature to fight for them. Sometimes a skill, a spell they could cast with their own two hands. Sometimes armor or weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. Not every card was the same, though. There were tiers. White cards were common, the kind everybody got stuck with. Green was rare, blue was heroic, purple was epic, and then there was orange, legendary. People said less than 1 in a million blank cards ever became a legendary card. Most people went their whole lives without seeing one in person. To make sure the next generation could fight back, the Federation gave every graduating senior 10 blank cards free of charge. 10 chances to pull something that could change your entire future. For most kids in my class, it was just a formality, a nice bonus before they went off to whatever life their family's money had already built for them. For me, it was everything. My parents were both sick, the kind of sick that ate through savings faster than we could ever earn them back. Those 10 cards were the only lottery ticket I was ever going to get. That's exactly why Wang Hu found me before class even started. He walked up with that smug little smile he always wore, the one that made my skin crawl, and told me he'd give me 50,000 for all 10 of my blank cards. I remember just staring at him, because even I knew blank cards sold for about 10,000 each on the open market. He was offering me half of what they were worth, banking on the fact that everyone knew whose son I was. The kid with the sick parents. The kid who needed money so badly he might sell his own future just to make it through the week. I told him to get lost. He didn't like that. None of them ever liked it when I didn't roll over. His friends jumped in right behind him, laughing about how I didn't even understand what I was turning down. They said I'd pull 10 garbage cards anyway, that I'd be crying and begging to sell them for even less once I saw what I got. One of them said if I somehow pulled anything better than pure trash, he'd eat his own words. I just clenched my jaw and said nothing. Our homeroom teacher called us all forward not long after that. She reminded us that these cards weren't a gift, not really. They were an investment the Federation was making in us, hoping that someday we'd grow strong enough to stand between humanity and the monsters on the other side of those cracks in the sky. Then she told us to begin. I watched the first few students draw their cards, and the room instantly split into two moods. Some kids groaned, staring down at 40 blank cards that had all turned into the exact same common grade garbage. One guy actually screamed that he'd used 40 cards and gotten nothing but common results. Another kid, holding what looked like 100 cards in his hands, shouted that everyone else was just unlucky, that he was about to show them how it was done. Then somebody pulled a heroic grade summon card fresh out of nowhere, and the whole room lost its mind. People were crowding around him, telling him he was basically guaranteed a spot at a top magic academy. I remember feeling this tight, sinking feeling in my chest. If a heroic card made that big of a scene, what was I supposed to do with 10 cards and no money to buy more? That's when I heard it. A voice, but not from anyone in the room. It was inside my own head. Ding! Congratulations, host, for activating the God tier draw system. Reward granted, draw luck, max. For a second, I thought I was losing my mind. I asked, silently, almost too scared to actually believe it was real, if this meant my odds of pulling something good were about to change. The voice answered immediately. Yes, host. With Draw Luck Max active, your luck value on every single draw will be maxed out. My hands were actually shaking. Somewhere behind me, Wang Hu's voice cut through my thoughts, sneering, asking why I still hadn't started drawing. He called me a beggar who only got these 10 free pulls because the Federation felt sorry for me, and said it didn't matter whether I drew or not, because they'd all be common cards anyway. I didn't answer him. I just reached for my first card. The moment I touched it, energy rushed into it, and it started to glow. The whole room seemed to hold its breath along with me. When the light faded, the card had turned a deep, rich blue, heroic grade, on my very first pull. Somebody gasped behind me. Wang Hu's smug expression cracked just slightly, and he quickly recovered, snapping that I'd just gotten lucky, that my luck would run out any second now. I didn't say anything back. I just smiled a little and reached for the second card. Green, rare grade. Wang Hu practically shouted that my luck was already gone, that if I pulled anything better than a plain green card next, he'd eat dirt. I almost laughed out loud. Then I drew again. This time, the light that burst out of the card was so bright that people actually flinched and covered their eyes. When it settled, I was holding a card colored a deep, glowing purple. Epic grade. A card worth millions on its own. The classroom went dead silent. Then everyone erupted at once. Someone called me the luckiest bastard alive. My homeroom teacher rushed over, practically begging me to show her the card's full properties, ignoring the 4 cards Wang Hu was desperately trying to shove in her face at the same time. I told her calmly that I still had 5 more cards to draw, and she could look at all of them together. Wang Hu muttered something about my luck being about to collapse. It didn't collapse. Not even close. I kept drawing. Every card came back green, blue, or purple. Not a single common card in the entire stack. By the time I reached my last card, the room wasn't laughing at me anymore. Nobody was laughing at all. They were staring, and some of them looked almost afraid. The light that erupted from that last card wasn't just bright. It was blinding. When the light finally died down, I was holding a card that shimmered with a deep, burning orange glow. A color so rare that most of the adults in that room had never seen it outside of textbooks. Legendary grade. I had pulled a legendary card with only 10 cards. The odds of that happening were less than 1 in a million, and everyone in that classroom knew it. My homeroom teacher told us, voice shaking, that the entire Federation had only produced 5 legendary cards in the whole previous year, and each of those had taken tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of blank cards to finally hit. I had done it with 10. She practically dragged me to see the principal that same afternoon. I found out later that the principal's office was already busy congratulating another student, a boy who'd drawn a heroic grade card using 40,000 blank cards, an amount of money that could have paid for my father's medicine for years. Some of the teachers actually made a comment about me before I even walked in, wondering out loud if the poor kid with the sick father was just there to beg for charity money. One of the teachers actually laughed in my face, telling me the special scholarship was only for students who pulled a legendary card and that nobody, especially not a poor kid using free draws, had ever managed that in the school's history. I didn't argue. I just asked them to look for themselves. I laid out my cards on the principal's desk, the epic, the heroic, and finally, the legendary glowing orange and impossible to deny. The teachers who had mocked me went completely silent. The principal stared at that legendary card like he couldn't quite trust his own eyes. He told me the school was proud of me. He approved my scholarship application on the spot, and then he doubled the prize money from 500,000 to a full million. I remember standing there, completely frozen, barely able to process what he just said. $1 million. That was more money than my family had seen in my entire lifetime. It was enough to finally get my father real treatment. It was enough to save him. I thanked the principal more times than I could count. Before I left, he told the 3 teachers who had mocked me that they didn't need to come to school anymore. My homeroom teacher, the one who had actually helped me, told me quietly that I'd earned every bit of this myself, and asked if my parents even knew yet. I told her I hadn't told them. I was going straight home to do it in person. I had no idea that walking home that day would nearly cost me everything all over again. A little girl stopped me before I even made it out of the school district. She was standing behind a small stand of flowers, and she smiled up at me, asking if I wanted to buy one. She said she'd picked them herself from the dangerous zone outside the city walls, and that hidden among them were 3 special flowers infused with real magic power. The moment my fingers touched the flowers, one of them lit up with a soft golden shimmer. The girl's eyes went wide, and she told me I was incredibly lucky, that I'd picked one of the 3 magic flowers on my very first try. A scream tore through the street. People were running, shouting for everyone to get away, and I turned just in time to see a wave of monsters pouring into the outer city district. Yellow tiger wasps, dozens of them, their wings ablur as they swarmed toward us. I felt my stomach drop. These things weren't supposed to be here. The outer districts were supposed to be safe, cleared out by the guard patrols. Someone nearby cursed, saying these must have slipped through a crack that the patrol teams thought they'd already sealed off. There was no time to think about how they got here. There was only time to survive. Someone shouted that running wouldn't save us, that the wasps were too fast, and that anyone with a card needed to fight now or die running. A man with a rare grade summon stepped forward, telling everyone to hold the line, that if we just held on until the city guard arrived, we'd make it. I felt the little girl grab onto my sleeve, her whole body shaking. She whispered that she was scared. I told her to stay close, that as long as I was there, nothing was going to happen to her. Someone shouted that these things were at least Black Iron 6-star, and that only the guard patrol had any real chance against a swarm like this. I remember scanning the sky, praying I'd see reinforcements, and for a moment, nothing came. Then I heard it. Wings, but different this time. Bigger, sharper. Someone screamed with relief that the Gale Hawks had arrived, that the guard patrol was finally here. The patrol captain didn't waste a second. He ordered his Gale Hawk to tear into the wasps, and I watched as the hawk ripped through them like they were nothing.